Yesterday, Ed Marzak, no, not yesterday, Tuesday, Ed Marzak showed up with a funny little costume on. And to kind of help everybody know sort of the traditions that, so that there weren't inside jokes. And I talked to some other people who actually really appreciated that. They're their first time here, and they're like, it was really nice not to know, or to know that the sort of the background here, so I wasn't confused why there's this inside joke. So, Patrick said something about, we all know why I might run long. And it just occurred to me, I can't say right now why we run long, because then it would be in the recording, and it can't be in the recording. But it's not an inside joke. Don't worry about it. At the end, you can still, if you're hungry, you can leave. You don't have to stick around. So, what are we going to talk about today? I'm sure you've never heard this term before. This is like brand new. Nobody's said this at all. This is just this term you've never heard. We can't get away from this term. In LA, actually, I think it's worldwide, but it's struck us particularly hard in LA. We've had a series of strikes. The writers and the actors have been striking for better pay, a lot of other things that people normally strike about. But one of the sticking points is AI. Both the writers and actors are concerned that the studios are going to use AI in ways that will cut into their future earning potentials. And the writer's strike has been resolved. I hope that the actor's strike is resolved quite soon. So I put up a slide about something bad about AI. So I figured I probably should put up a slide about something good about AI, and it was kind of hard to find one. But I looked, I did find one. So there is something good about AI. But the term artificial intelligence seems to have been invented at a workshop more than 60 years ago. And the organizers were very confident about how they were going to be able to make really great progress in 2 months with 10 people. And these early researchers were very, very optimistic. They predicted that well before the year 2000, computers were going to be able to beat every single person playing chess. We're going to develop new mathematical theorems, and essentially would be able to do any job a human could do. Are we there yet? No, but another term that we hear when people are talking about computers and intelligence and getting smarter is machine learning. And machine learning is a method by which computers kind of discover or develop their own algorithms for solving a problem. And this is often via pattern recognition and classification. And machine learning models are trained on large sets of data. For example, maybe millions of pictures of people's faces, or sales records, or medical information. And some of the examples, we use machine learning algorithms every day. And here's some of the examples. I see a lot of Teslas on the road here in Sweden, and Tesla has been using machine learning to help power their full self-driving feature. We've had huge advances in speech recognition in the last 20 years. Who remembers Dragon Naturally Speaking? Did anybody actually ever work with that when it first came out? You'd install it, and then you'd have to spend hours training it against your own voice. And it made tons of errors. But it was amazing technology at the time. But now, we have it on our phone, and it does much, much better, and it can recognize anybody's voice. And that's all because of advances in machine learning. And machine learning then led to the development of what we call generative AI. And that's where you take the idea of machine learning, where you're learning or training on all these patterns, and then telling the computer to take what it's learned and then generate new content that is maybe based on that or similar to the patterns that they have, or remixing those patterns in new and exciting ways. I'm sure most of you have seen, in fact, we've seen today and previous things, images that have been generated by things like Midjourney and DALL-E. So I gave DALL-E this prompt to generate an image, and let's just look at a few of its responses. So, yeah, okay. I like this one a lot. You know, where's the computers, though? I mean, it's a little abstract. So I asked, maybe we should, you know, the more specific the prompt, apparently, the better the image. So let's go a little bit further. Let's say we want these MacSysAdmins in Sweden. And apparently it decided the Monet part, forget that, that's too hard. And I don't really understand why all these guys are wearing the same shirt. But, you know, I really think it nailed it. I mean, I know I've seen this guy here. But recently, we've also seen large language models become very effective. And so much has happened in the past few years. GPT, which is from OpenAI, is probably one you've heard of. And it's actually been around longer than you might think, but these early releases, hardly anybody paid attention to them except for maybe the hardcore researchers in that field that were understanding what was going on. But just very recently, less than a year ago, really, ChatGPT was released. It would have been like November of 2022. And suddenly, everybody started paying attention because it was really easy to use. You went to a web page, you typed in a question, and then it did something silly, and it was really easy for people to share and make fun of. But more importantly, people started paying attention. And then a few months later, we got this thing called Llama from Meta, and it was. The big thing is it was kind of open source, but there were restrictions placed on it, so you couldn't use it to build any sort of commercial product. OpenAI then released ChatGPT 4, and then this summer, Meta released Llama 2 and removed that restriction. People could now use it to build commercial products. So huge explosion in interest because you've got this really high quality model that virtually anybody can build anything on top of. So let's play with this a little bit. I asked ChatGPT to write a poem about MacSysAdmins in Sweden. So shall I read it aloud? All right, let's try this. In Sweden's land of lakes and pines so tall, where winters bite and summers gently call, there toils a group, both diligent and keen, the MacSysAdmins of this Nordic scene. With beards as thick as the northern snow, they navigate the systems to and fro. In Stockholm's heart or Gothenburg's embrace, they keep the Macs running with steady grace. In data centers cold where cables sprawl, they work their magic, answering the call. From iMac sleek to MacBooks on the go, their expertise in IT, they proudly show. And there's no way I'm going to read the rest of it. I imagine that if you gave that to somebody who taught poetry for a living, they would say that was absolute crap poetry. But that's pretty impressive for a computer that you give it a prompt like that, and it, came up with good rhymes or fairly good rhymes, and the meter was okay. I don't know. I kind of liked it. So how do these things even work? At the core, these are really nothing more than fancy sentence completion algorithms. And you've seen this on your iPhone when you're typing a message and it predicts the next word that you should type. Same idea. That's a very small language model on your phone, but these are much larger language models. There's a ton of them out there. There's a few that you might have heard of. ChatGPT 3 is probably the one most people in here have at least encountered once, but there's tons more. And so, why? Why am I interested in large language models? Why did I pick this as a topic for MacSysAdmin Talk? So as you might know, I'm the primary developer of Munki, which is a software management system for Mac OS. And I answer a lot of questions about Munki. And there are many, many places people ask these questions. They ask on online mailing lists, they ask on Slack, they ask in issues on GitHub. And many times the info people need is available in the Munki wiki, but they have trouble finding it. Somebody needs to kind of like give them a link to it, or they might need the info explained in a different way. And these seem to me like, you know, maybe this is something that a chat bot could do, that we could somehow spin up this chat bot and people could ask questions about Munki and it could answer some questions, point them to the right documentation, that sort of thing. And I thought, can I build that? Is that something that I can do? So I started experimenting a little bit. And I first started by trying to see what ChatGPT could do. And you have to create an account at openai.com, and then you can chat with a GPT 3.5 Turbo. So it's like better than 3, but not quite up to 4. And it can answer some basic questions about Munki. And it does pretty well when asked to describe, you know, some of the core features. But we can quickly see a major limitation. ChatGPT was trained on data from the public internet and many other things, but there was a cutoff date. They stopped training it in data before, well, I guess a better way of phrasing it is, the data that they trained it on stopped in September of 2021. So anything that happened after that, ChatGPT doesn't really know about. So, you know, ask it, what's the current version of Munki? It says 5.2. Well, that probably was the current version in September of 2021, but, you know, it's very outdated right now. And this is because ChatGPT is missing over 2 years of information, and that's an eternity in technology. You know, it doesn't even know the current version of macOS. It doesn't even know the last version of macOS before this one. So what we want is a way to augment the chatbot so that it has more current information and more specific information about the area that we're asking about. And one handy source of additional information about Munki is the Munki wiki. That's 150-ish markdown pages, about a megabyte of data. And so if we can somehow feed that into the chatbot and say, hey, here's some additional information you can use, maybe it will give us some good answers. And so to make this customized chatbot, I turned to Python. Joel, are you here? Good, he doesn't want to hear about Python. But Python, for a lot of reasons, has been very popular in the machine learning community. And so it's not terribly surprising that there are a lot of really good tools for working with large language models in Python. So I started with something called Llama Index. And it was specifically developed to allow you to pull in additional data when working with the large language models. So we install some Python dependencies, and the script itself is pretty small. And we import some bits from OpenAI, from Llama Index. We have to give it an API key to work with GPT 3.5, and we can get that key after we set up an account at openai.com. We can read the documents in a directory. I took all of the Munki wiki markdown documents and stuck them into a directory, and so we read that, and then we build what's called an index. And that's when the model kind of processes that free text and then finds patterns and computes matrices and all a bunch of stuff I do not understand at all. But it takes a while, and then we can fire up this chat engine and then go into a little loop where I can type a question and it'll spit back a response. So you run this script and it sits for a while, and then it exits with a really long error message containing this bit. And this is where you discover that working with the OpenAI API isn't free. So off you go to OpenAI website, and you get your credit card out, and you spend some actual money. So to get started, $10. I'll put $10 in here, and let's try running that chatbot again. Well, it was a heck of a lot of work and spent 10 bucks to get the absolutely wrong answer. But this is a chat bot, so we can continue the conversation. It apologized. Okay, well, I guess that's a little better. And it does prove now that it had access to information it didn't have before, because Monkey 6 did not exist in September of 2021, so it knows about that. By the way, the current version of Monkey is 6.3.3, so in case we're testing, we want to know the answer here. Let's try this one more time. Okay, come on. So it gives up at this point and suggests that we visit the Monkey website to find the answer to our question. Essentially, it has told us to go read the fine manual. One of my goals was it would be nice if the chat bot was nicer than, say, me, and we're not getting there. But one of the things you learn when you start playing with these large language models is that the actual question you ask is pretty important. And so I thought, maybe if I try some different questions, I would get better answers. Well, this isn't really helpful, right? Okay, great, there are different methods. Let's try this one. Can you give me a list? Well, yeah, there's a list there. It seems really, though, to know more about Monkey versions than it originally seemed, and this information is coming from somewhere. Well, if you poke around the Monkey wiki, you go, oh, yeah, it just scraped them off of this page here. So we know that it ingested that documentation, but it still doesn't really completely understand it. So, we're not, this isn't really artificial intelligence, but we're kind of tiptoeing our way towards it. But essentially, have we even really gained anything here? This is a lot of work, and are these answers really much better than we were getting from ChatGPT? So let's check that. Let's just look at the regular ChatGPT and ask it a question that is, this would require new information since Monkey 6 did not exist when ChatGPT's training was cut off. And it does tell us, yep, I don't know anything past September 2021, and it just makes crap up. It's like, well, yeah, usually when software is released, when a new version of software is released, it has improved performance and enhanced security, generic marketing stuff. So I guess if you're a marketer, this is good. You could probably just, feed this stuff in, and then you don't have to think too hard about what the new features are. But it just makes stuff up. Now, if we ask the same question to our customized chatbot, let's see what it comes up with. Okay. It definitely has access to some information that was not available at the time ChatGPT's training was cut off, and it actually came up with an accurate answer. That is one of the new features that was introduced in Monkey 6, and this feature was introduced to support upgrading macOS on Apple Silicon. So, okay, better. And here's another example. We're going to again ask ChatGPT about a feature that was added in Monkey 6.1. Let's see what it says. No, just make something up completely, not even close to being correct. We'll try the custom model. All right, specified in the, okay. So it hit the right points here. The default installs is this new feature that allows an administrator to say, here's some stuff I want installed on every machine or on a new machine, but I still want to leave it in control of the user, that they can then go, yeah, I don't want that anymore. I want to get rid of that. That was before you kind of had an either-or thing, which is you had something called manage installs, and those were pieces of software that the admin has chosen to install on the machine, but then the user can't do anything about it. They're on the machine. Or you have what's called optional installs, and those are completely opt-in. So the user has nothing, and then they have to choose to install things. This is sort of a middle ground. Here's some stuff you can start with, but if you don't want it, feel free to remove it. New feature in Monkey 6.1. So I thought I was doing this for a while, so let's check our balance of the money that we've been spending at OpenAI, and this was just after like a couple hours of playing around with it, and it's already, you know, like blown through $2.50. And so if I'd like built a chat bot and put it on a website and out in the public internet where like hundreds or thousands of people could hit it, you know, pretty soon you're going through, you know, real money. And my budget for this is nothing. So what do you do if you don't want to spend a bunch of money? Or what if you're looking to do this sort of thing, what if you want to train this thing on data that you're not allowed to put up in the cloud? Data that should not be leaving your organization because maybe it's, you know, would help your competitors if they had access to that. So in these cases, we probably want to look into running a large language model locally, not out in the cloud, but like on a machine that you control. This presentation is going to be littered with these AI-generated images, and some of them are really disturbing. I mean, it's like, you'd think they would know how to draw faces that didn't look like they were hit by a car, but but if we're going to look at local models, right now the best one to play with is Llama 2 from Facebook/Meta. And this only came out in the summer, and things are changing really fast, so, you know, maybe in a week or two there'll be something even better, Llama 3 or Alpaca 95 or whatever. But it is changing fast. But right now, Llama 2. And to run Llama 2 locally, you'll need an Intel PC and an NVIDIA GPU. Make sure you spend thousands and thousands of dollars on that good NVIDIA GPU. The more VRAM you have, the better. Or any Mac with Apple Silicon. Obviously, the faster the Apple Silicon chip, the better, but I've actually run local models that work just fine on a base M1 chip. You know, the original 13-inch MacBook Pro with the M1, still has the touch bar. It runs some of these local models just fine. So if you have an Apple Silicon Mac, you can play with these local models. You don't have to go spend a bunch of money on a NVIDIA card. And these models are really, they're just files, they're complex files, but they're really large. This one for Llama 2 is over 7 gigabytes in size. There are smaller ones that take up less space and probably are more appropriate for like an M1. For an M2, you could probably use the bigger one. And there are even larger ones, which I have not played with, because they're not only large in terms of how much disk space they use, but they're also large in how much memory they want to use and how much processor they want to use. And before I started trying to customize the Llama 2 with the Monkey documentation, I wanted to get a sense of what it could do before I customized it. And there's a nice little Python module called simply LLM, and they all have either LLM or Llama in their names, so searching for them is a lot of fun. But LLM lets us quickly play with these models, so I thought I'd try that. So let's ask it, what are the main features of Monkey? Pretty basic question. What? Well, okay, you know, maybe sometimes I'm a little bit, you know, like, oh, everybody knows what Monkey is. It doesn't know. Okay, fine. Maybe I can just point it to the Monkey website, you know, just tell the chatbot, hey, here's the Monkey website, now can you kind of summarize and tell me what the features are? So let's try that one. So it thinks about it for a second. It's not really recommending that anybody use it. So, you know, earlier there was some stuff like, hey, this would be good for starting your marketing. Don't start with this if you're trying to market your. Does it know something about Monkey I don't know about? All right, let's try something else, something a little bit more narrowly focused. Just summarize the README from the Monkey website. Okay, so it figured out that it's something to manage software on Mac OS, but it's still telling me don't use it, go find something else. Especially the part about there are many excellent software management tools available for Mac OS that do not promote harmful practices or contain offensive language. Okay, I'll bite. Please show me these tools that don't contain offensive language. So let's ask it. Okay, right, what? Okay, and then that last one, you know that it has no idea what it's talking about, right? Because what have we spent most of this conference complaining about? This really makes me sad that Llama 2 is this negative about my baby. But let's go back to this earlier response. It turns out that Llama 2, now remember who released it? Meta, which is the parent company of Facebook. It turns out that Llama 2 is, by default, is incredibly conservative and very quick to tell you why it doesn't want to do something that you tell it to do. And this is because of this, what is called a system prompt. And this is something that you don't see when you're talking to these chatbots, but it's like in the code, and it tells the chatbot how to behave. And the default system prompt goes out of its way to tell Llama to be super careful and not say anything that could be potentially controversial, potentially harmful, that sort of thing. And we can override that. So I can ask one of these questions again. Oh wait, actually, what did I got my slides in the slide over here. This is one of the reasons why you want your chatbot to be careful, because we don't really want these chatbots telling people things to do things that they shouldn't do. Yeah. Yes. But we can override that system prompt. You know, we can tell the chatbot it's okay. You know, you don't have to be quite as, restricted about what we're talking about here. And I'm just simply going to say, you are a helpful assistant, a helpful technical assistant. But, still, we're going to ask it to summarize that same page. And now, finally, we get something back that makes some sense. It has now been given a new role, that it's a helpful technical assistant. And so it goes, okay, well, I guess I need to do that. But I was still kind of curious what originally it found so objectionable about Munki. And so I tried different system prompts, and finally this one kind of gave me a clue. And it's very concerned that Munki is software that is designed to install software on users' computers without their knowledge or permission. And to me, I'm like, duh, that's the point. But that's the thing that really tripped it up, is like, oh, you're doing something that violates the user's privacy. And so, maybe it is illegal in certain countries. I don't know. Maybe does it fall foul of European privacy laws? I hope not. No, there he is. I knew I had a scary looking. He's customizing the like bedazzling the llama, I think. I don't know what that thing. It looks like pieces of Play-Doh or something. I don't know. And the glasses are creepy as hell. It's just, how hard is this? Okay. Now that we have a local Llama 2 model that can answer questions about Munki, let's feed it that Munki documentation and see if it can do a better job. And the Llama index module, it can use local models, but it can also use the Open API or the Open AI GPT model. So it can do both of those things. So my Python script to use the local model trained on custom data is more complex than the other one, but not so much. The first script that was using ChatGPT or GPT-3, about 50 lines of Python code. In order to use a local model, we're up to about 130 lines of code, but that includes a fair amount of comments. So let's try that local model with access to the Munki documentation. Are we ready? Go. Damn it! That's a new answer, at least. It's not right, but it's different. Okay. It looks like it pulled the information from this page. It didn't just make it up, but It didn't find the right information. But we still can argue with it like we did with ChatGPT. And notice it's starting to let the illusion slip a little bit, and it's letting some of its internal script sort of leak into the conversation. This little, it's like when a certain politician was reading the notes here and say, show genuine concern. He's reading his stage manager notes on his teleprompter, and we have the same thing here. It's like, pretend you're an assistant. It just leaks right out into the, and I've actually seen it as you keep chatting, another assistant appended in front, and then another one, so it says assistant, colon, and then the response. And I don't know if that's a bug in the model or a bug in the Python code or what, but it's kind of funny. But this model behaves differently than GPT-3 because instead of just giving up, it asks, okay, I don't know the correct information. Can you tell me? So sure, let's tell it. And it kind of parrots that back. And then we can ask for comprehension here. Oh, great. So we've taught it something new. And now let's restart the chatbot. And let's ask it again. There's no state here that's preserved. It's like, it's like Groundhog Day. Every day it's just starting over from zero, and we're in a time loop, and we will never get any better. All right, let's try something else. Let's try some of the other questions we had asked ChatGPT. Let's ask it about some new features. I don't like it when it acts so excited. Oh my gosh. And it starts making up crap. I don't know what auto monkey recipes are. Creating monkey packages from a YAML file. No. Let's try another question. We talked about default installs. Let's see. These are packages that are included in the default installation of a monkey. No, completely wrong. Bad bot, you're terrible. Go away. It doesn't screw up every question. I found one here that it answered pretty well, but manifests and catalogs have been part of Munki for over 15 years, and so there's a lot of information already there. So maybe this wasn't that hard for it to answer. So, I asked the same question of Llama 2 out on a public website, so it was untrained, and it describes catalogs pretty well, but it stumbles when it comes to explaining manifests. And so the answer from the customized chatbot is actually better, but it's not amazingly so. Well, could our local model at least entertain us? Let's see. There once was a monkey so fine, it managed software with a shine. With default so neat, all users had software to eat. And their productivity did climb and shine. We're rhyming shine with shine. This is really, really bad. But my laptop wrote a limerick about monkey. It's terrible, but it did it. But so far we were actually pretty disappointed by the quality of this custom chatbot. So we have learned that this AI is good for one thing, right? Putting disturbing images in your presentations. And as I was trying to finish up this presentation last week, I thought, oh, I'll be able to finish. No, everything was going wrong. And it really bothered me that the local Llama 2 model was doing such a terrible job of answering these questions. And I thought it should be able to do better. So I ran across another Python project for running local LLMs, and I decided to give it a try. And it's called Local GPT. It's designed to let you get a local LLM up and running and train it with your custom data, which is exactly what we're trying to do. So I tried it out, and first try, accurate answer. The other question, pretty good answer. Let's ask another question. Nope. No new features. Okay, thank you very much. So not perfect, but promising. And it points out that, that there's more subtlety here, that the model is not necessarily good or bad, but there's tweaks that we need to do. So I wanted to look and figure out, why was this version trying to, doing a little bit better job, at least in by some measures. And I started looking at the code for both sides, and I saw that they were using two different embedding models. So what's an embedding model? When we take those custom documents and we ingest them, they get run through a model that turns the text into something that the LLM can actually reference. And there are different models, and they have different purposes. They run at different speeds. Some are meant for summary. Some are meant for finding answers out of a FAQ. They're tuned based on the data. So you might choose a different embedding model for different types of data. So I thought, I'll see if I can play around with this other code that I have and see if I can change the model and make it answer the questions better. And I wasn't really able, at least immediately, to figure out how to make it run the exact same embedding model that LocalGPT did, but I was able to point it towards the embedding model that OpenAI uses. So let's try it out. So not only does it get the answer right, but it even goes further and points out that current version may not be the right one if you happen to be running a really old version of macOS. So that's a really good response for this. The downside, though, is that embedding model runs in the cloud. And remember that using the OpenAI API is not free. So let's check our balance. We're using this money faster than I thought we would be. But more importantly, for many people, again, because that embedding model is out in the cloud, I'm sending my proprietary data, out of my network and up into servers I don't control. So if we really want to protect that data, we've got to find a local model, a local embedding model to work with our local large language model. And I tried. There's hundreds, thousands of these models. And I just started playing with this a few months ago, and so I'm far from even beginning to know how I would choose between these different models. So I just started trying stuff at random. But it took a very long time to test these because remember when it reads those documents in and then it has to process them and convert them. And depending on the model, it was taking anywhere from 20 minutes to 2 hours to ingest that monkey documentation. And so, I want to try a new model. 2 hours later, I get to see if it worked or not. And it was kind of, not just boring, but kind of dispiriting to have a failure after waiting for 2 hours for it to process. But after testing several local embedding models, I didn't really see a serious improvement, and I was really frustrated. And I kept reading documentation for Llama Index and documentation on embedding and custom documents. And I looked up how to get some sort of debugging output out of the model. And when I did that, I noticed another difference between what was happening when the code was using the OpenAI/ChatGPT APIs and when it was using a local model. So this is some of the debug output when I was calling OpenAI or GPT-3. And you can see what the system prompt is here. That's the stuff that's in green and orange here. And it's very careful. The system prompt is very carefully telling the model how to behave, but also how to use the information that it has access to. And if we look at the prompt that was being used for the local LLM, quite different. So I thought maybe that was significant. Maybe if we could somehow get the system prompt to be better or closer to what we had with the OpenAI, maybe I would get better answers. So I looked through the code and figured out how I could do that, and I basically just copied and pasted the system prompts from OpenAI and fed those to Llama. And so now I'm looking at the debug output. Okay, this gets a little bit closer. And but look at that context information that it's working with. It doesn't actually contain the right answer. So that kind of explains why the chatbot responds with the wrong answer. So let's look back at the documentation some more. And I was trying to look for a way to get the model to consider more data. How can, instead of, maybe it was returning a couple hits, but maybe I want it to return more. And I found this thing that controlled how many similar bits of information it considered, and they call it similarity top K. I have no idea what that means. But in the code, the default value for that is 2. And that lines up with the fact that we really basically saw 2 pieces of data it was considering to figure out what the current version of Munki is. So I thought, well, what if we bump it to 5? So I tried setting to 5. Let's run it again. Now we get a whole bunch more data to consider. And in that data that it was considering, actually the correct answer is now inside that data. So when it finally answers the question, wow, it actually came up with the right answer this time. So it's not surprising if it's not given the correct answer, it can't parrot that back to us. Once it's given the correct answer, it can. So we did that, got that working. Let's try one of the little bit harder questions. And it also comes up with a pretty good answer. It's used to offer a set of commonly used apps. It even points out that anything that's in default installs must also live in optional installs. Okay, good answer. So we're slowly improving the quality of the responses. And some of the things I discovered affected the quality are, of course, the actual LLM model you choose, the embedding model you choose, the exact prompts you feed the LLM, how much context it considers. But there's one more really obvious one, obvious in retrospect when you think about it, and that's the quality of the documents you feed the chatbot. If it doesn't have good answers in the documentation, it's not going to be able to give you good answers on the other side. So let's look at that a little deeper. So while I was working on trying to improve the quality of the chatbot answers, I was updating some dependencies, I was installing more Python modules, and suddenly when I started up the chatbot, I started to get messages like this. It was like, like the sound when a modem connects. I know there's probably like 5 people here still old enough to remember that. Or I would get this sort of a greeting message where it was complaining about code. I wasn't giving it code, but it said, there's code in hex. Oh, or this sort of thing where it decided that this garbage text was a rewritten version of the golden rule. Is this chatbot going insane? I don't understand what's going on here. And it wasn't until I turned on the prompt debugging, when I was trying to debug what was going on with the system prompt, that I realized that this was part of the context it was working with. It was acting as though this garbage was in the documents that I had given it to learn. And that didn't make sense to me. I was like, okay, is this somehow the embedding model is corrupting it? Where is this garbage text coming from? While I was trying to figure that behavior out, I checked my OpenAI credit balance. Am I really using that many resources? And these things turned out to be connected. It took me a long time to realize that there was things inside the documentation directory that were not text files. I had used git clone to pull those files into a directory, and when you clone a git repository, you get this little hidden directory called .git, and it has files that look like this inside it. Kind of looks like garbage, and we were getting garbage in the, so putting 2 and 2 together here. And something else, this .git directory accounted for 18 megabytes of the document directory's size. And once I removed that .git directory, we're down to 1 megabyte. And not only did all this garbage disappear from the output of the chatbot, but now my times for indexing that data, the embedding part, It previously was 20 minutes to 2 hours. Now it's like 30 seconds to 2 minutes. So much, much faster too. Because we were cranking through 19 megabytes of garbage and 1 megabyte of good stuff. So this makes sense once you figure that out. In retrospect, like, oh, okay, that makes sense. All right, so after a lot of experimentation, we finally have a local large language model customized with custom data that can answer at least one question accurately most of the time. But you're thinking this, okay, he just sat up here for 45 minutes talking about something I do not care about at all because I don't use it. That's fine. You can customize a chat bot on any text documentation. Again, both of those things, it looks like somebody hit them in the face with a shovel. Why can't they? I don't get these. But this time, I did the same chat bot, and I customized it with auto-package documentation. Asked it about the main features. Does a pretty good job of explaining some of the main features of auto-package. Let's ask it something else. Let's ask it, how about this question? Can't answer that one either, but that actually turns out because there is no version information in the auto-package wiki. So there's no way from the auto-package wiki for it to determine version information. Where do we go from here? Can we make a custom Munki chatbot available for everybody to use? Well, in theory, yes. But if we run this bot on the OpenAI API, it's going to be way too expensive. We're just going to burn through cash, and like I said, I have a zero budget. So let's use open source Llama 2. Well, now we still have the problem, we've got to host it somewhere. I'm still going to have hosting costs. Well, what instead if we built a local tool that people could just download and install on their machine? It's really pretty complex. It's large. We'd be asking people to download multiple gigabytes of data to ask these questions, and that's probably not something a novice is going to want to do right away. But the most important problem here is these responses are not good. I don't want to give somebody who's new to Munki a tool that's going to give them bad information. Here's what I want. I want to be able to have somebody ask a question like this, and then I want it to respond with something very narrow and focused that gets them to the right place, and ideally show them where they can get more information. So that's if I'm answering a question like that as a human, that's what I would do. So I would love that the chatbot would do that. And if somebody says, oh, you should just go to the Munki Wiki and search, they've got to get the search terms right. If they did that literal question that I just answered, they get nothing. If they simplify the search terms, they still don't get really good responses. Search is so literal in terms of the words that it matches that if you don't know what to search for, it's really hard to search for something that you don't know anything about. Large language models at least can, figure out similarities between words. And, if you're searching for happy dogs, it'll also return results for satisfied puppies and pleased pooches because it understands more of the context and the meanings of those words. We can ask ChatGPT this same question. It's not really very good in terms of what it answers. It's a very long answer that has inaccuracies. We can ask our custom chatbot same question, and it's wrong. There's no distribution option to Munki. There's no install option to Munki. It just makes crap up. So these answers are just not good enough. You would not want to give this to a newbie and say, here's how you can learn how to use Munki, because it would just take them down a wrong path, confuse them more. It's just wrong. There is a little thing maybe that shows us a light at the end of the tunnel. If you look at Bing, Microsoft Bing, I know we're probably not huge Microsoft fans in this room, although they do make some good stuff. Bing has a chat engine that's based on GPT-4, which is the kind of the latest and greatest chat engine from, or large language model from OpenAI. And Microsoft's a big company, and they've got buckets of money. One assumes that they're going to try to make this as best as they can. So we can ask this same question of the Bing chat, and we actually get a fairly accurate question, or a fairly accurate answer. It gets a few things wrong because it does identify the correct key to use, but it tells you to put it in a manifest, which is wrong. But one of the things I do like about Bing chat is it tells you where to find out more information. It kind of like quotes its references, and it gives you links so you can go find. It did not point us to the wiki page that explains that force install after date, but we can see that this is going the right direction. So I'd say, no, not today. We can't really do a chat bot to take over the idea of helping new people learn Monkey. But we can see that maybe that's coming in the future, that we'll be able to do that. We should really probably think about these chat bots the way Samuel L. Jackson, that would have been good. Samuel L. Johnson, and I didn't put it in the, does anybody know what the thing I edited out was? What he was talking about? It was women preaching. So he thought that was something that was amazing that they could do. But we like the chatbot that wrote a poem or wrote a limerick, it's just amazing that it does it at all. It will get better. We can keep experimenting. One of the things I would like to try experimenting with, you may be familiar with test-driven development, which is where you write tests, and then after you write the test, you write code until it makes the tests pass. I think it might be kind of interesting to play around with something that I'm going to call prompt-driven documentation, which is where you write chat prompts, and then you refine your documentation until your chat bot returns the correct information. I think that might be a way to kind of improve your documentation. If you can get the chat bot to do it correctly, then maybe a human can find the information in there. And you're saying, okay, Greg, you've been talking now for almost an hour. I want to play with this stuff too. That's why I'm here. This is fun. I want to play with this stuff. So I've got some links here that you can play along. Here's a tool I successfully played with. The documentation says you need to use Homebrew. You don't. So if you're allergic to Homebrew like I am, you don't have to use Homebrew. You can get it up and running without. I got this one working as well. That was one of the ones that actually gave me pretty good responses early on. Llama Index is the one I've spent the most time with. I don't know to say that it's the best one. It may be the worst one for all I know. Again, this field changes really, really fast, and there's tons of people adding stuff to it all the time. It's certainly the most complex of the ones that I found, but the complexity also means it's very customizable, and you can try different things that are hard to do in some of those other tools. And all of these projects require Python, which we all know is no longer installed by default in Mac OS. So you might want to go get a copy of Python. This is a good place to do it. And you're all sitting there going, oh God, that sounds so hard. I don't want to do that. So I got you. Just download this thing. At my GitHub site, Greg Nagel, MSA 2023 chatbot, it contains everything you need. There is a Python distribution in there. It already has all the needed Python modules pre-installed into the Python distribution, and a couple shell scripts you can run, and you can have a chatbot up and running in 5 minutes. I don't know. I can do it in a couple minutes. And I'd like to thank some of my testers, Nate Walk, Per Allison, Armin Briegel, who verified that it actually does work on machines that are not my machines. So I have a pretty good confidence that you will be able to download this stuff and actually run it. You do require Apple Silicon. Don't try to run this on Intel. Who here still only has Intel Mac and does not have access to Apple Silicon? That's not too many. That's actually not too bad. So, but this is not your excuse to go back to your boss and go, artificial intelligence, it's the future. I need Apple Silicon. And so, I mean, that's your justification right there. So, I'd like to thank you all for listening to me today. I imagine we don't have a lot of time for Q&A. I will be here, at lunchtime. I will be here tonight at the Beer Bash. I'll be here all day tomorrow. Please, if you have any questions, I do not pretend to be much of an expert about AI or large language models. I just know some things that I've learned in the last few months, and I'd be happy to share those things. Thank you.